Welcome to my channel. This is part 4 in a 9-part series on drafting a pattern for an 1870s evening gown based on a design by the acclaimed costume designer Susan Tsu. In this tutorial, I will teach you how to draft the 2-piece 3/4 length sleeve with a strong curve at the elbow. Let's get started. Alright, I have open our project file from part 3, which has our bodice in it, has the collar for the bodice in it, and then down here I also have the skirt that is hidden and deactivated. And let's go ahead and go to the rectangle tool. So that is the S hotkey and is right here in the 2D toolbar. And click anywhere in the 2D window. And we're going to give ourselves the start of our sleeve pattern, which I've already figured out the dimensions for based on this avatar's size. So we can go ahead and type in width 7.5 inches. And then for height, we're going to type in 16 inches. Go ahead and click OK. Okay, I've zoomed in on this rectangle and then I've labeled these corners A, B, C, D for ease of following along with the written guide available on my Patreon. And now we're going to go to the Edit Pattern tool, or the Z hotkey, which is right here in the 2D toolbar. And right-click line AB and choose Offset as Internal Line, which is right here in the drop-down menu. And we're going to say number of offsets 1, and distance is going to be 4 inches. Go ahead and click OK. And then we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to right-click line AB and then choose Offset as Internal Line. And we're going to make this distance 12 inches and go ahead and click OK. I went ahead and labeled those lines E, F, G, H. This line right here is the base of our sleeve cap, and this line right here is our elbow line. Now we're going to go to the internal polygon tool, or the G hotkey, that is right here in the 2D toolbar. And we're going to go ahead and click on point A and then double click point F. And so we're creating 1/2 of the sleeve cap with this line. Now go to the Edit Curve Point tool, which is the V hotkey and is right here in the 2D toolbar. You have to click and hold on Edit Pattern, and then you have the option for Edit Curve Point right there. And go ahead and right-click this internal line that we created in the previous step, so internal line AF, and go ahead and choose Uniform Split and number of segments 3. So we're dividing that line into thirds, and then click OK. We're labeling that first curve point up here 1, and then the second one 2. Go ahead and, still with the Edit Curve Point tool selected, click and drag curve point 1 kind of out this direction. It doesn't really matter where you go because you're just going to right click and then choose on the x-axis, we want to move it 0.25 inches, and on the y-axis we also want to move it 0.25 inches. That looks good. Go ahead and click OK. And then similarly with curve point 2, we're actually going to click and drag, this time, drag it inwards, but it doesn't really matter because when you right click, this dialog box will open. And for x-axis, we want it to be negative 0.125, so minus 1/8 of an inch. Same on the y-axis, negative 0.125. And then go ahead and click OK. Now that we have a nice curved line here, we're going to go ahead and go back to the Edit Pattern tool, or the Z hotkey. We're going to right-click that curved A to F line and then choose Cut. And that will break off this piece here, which we can delete. Go ahead and delete. So goodbye point B. Go ahead and delete him there too. And then with the Z hotkey, or the Edit Pattern tool still selected, right-click this line, A to C, and choose Unfold on the drop-down menu. So not Unfold with Symmetric Editing this time, just Unfold. When I unfolded, I went ahead and labeled these new points over here on the left points I, J, and K. Now we're going to go ahead and sew this sleeve to the bodice before we do any more editing. It'll just make it easier later on. So in the 3D window, go ahead and grab the Select Move tool or the Q hotkey that is right here in the 3D toolbar. Go ahead and on the keyboard, you press Shift F and that will show the arrangement points. Click the sleeve, and then on the left of the body, go ahead and click a point that will place the sleeve somewhere where it looks like it will sew together nicely. And I said left to me, but it's actually the avatar's right arm, so that's the terminology that I'm going to use from now on. Okay, and now with this in place, go ahead and go to the segment sewing tool or the N hotkey, and I think this is a little bit easier to do. In the 2D window, go ahead and click on line IK and then line FD to sew that underarm sleeve. And then zoom out so you can see your bodice as well. Let's make sure that this sleeve, is on the same side as the bodice that we want to sew it to. Go ahead and go to M to N free sewing, and that is here in the 2D toolbar. You have to click and hold on free sewing to find M to N free sewing, and then go ahead and select that. And I went ahead and added more letters onto the bodice to name these points. So there's I, J, K, L, M, and N, and that will help us figure out how this all sews together. This is one of the trickiest parts of sewing on a sleeve, especially when there's more than one piece involved in either the sleeve or the bodice or both. So on the sleeve, you're going to click point I, and then you're going to click point F all the way over here, and then press enter to complete that side of the sewing. Easy. Okay, now on the bodice, you're going to start at point K down here in the armpit, then click point L, then M, then N, then I, and then back to J, and then go ahead and press enter to complete that sewing. And looking over here in the 3D window, it looks like it worked, which is exciting. You can go ahead and press simulate if you want to test that. And yeah, it looks like it's all sewed in properly. And since it's all sewn in now, we can go ahead and start breaking apart our sleeve into 2 pieces. So I'm going to go to the Edit Pattern tool or the Z hotkey, right-click line IK, and then choose Offset as Internal Line. Number of offsets I want to be 1, and then distance I want to be 3 inches. Go ahead and click OK. And do the same thing on line FD. So right-click, Offset as Internal Line, number of offsets 1, and then distance 3 inches. And click OK. And now we want to, still with the Edit Pattern tool, shift-click both of these new lines that we just created, and then right-click and say cut and sew, which is right here in the drop-down menu. Now what we want to do is merge these 2 pieces that we just created together. Mine didn't pull apart, but they look like this. And to do that, we're going to go to the Edit Sewing tool or the B hotkey, and that is up here in the 2D toolbar. Right-click this underarm sewing line on line IK, and then choose merge. And now you have a top part of your sleeve and a bottom part of your sleeve. Okay, since all of my points got really messed up in that last step, I went ahead and deleted all of them and gave them a whole new naming convention, starting with A at the point of the sleeve cap. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually, this is the upper sleeve here on the outside of the arm, and this is the undersleeve. I'm going to click and drag to line up the upper sleeve with the undersleeve at points 1 and 2 down here. So basically they're lined up with the bases touching and centered on each other. And once that's done, I'm going to go to the Edit Pattern tool or the Z hotkey, and I'm actually going to narrow the upper sleeve to fit the cuff length of the undersleeve. So I'm going to click and drag point F and just lock it into place with point L. And the same thing with point G. I'm going to click and drag it to meet point M right there. Now the upper and undersleeve are balanced at the hemline. Just to clean up these two lines here, I'm going to right click this line JK on the undersleeve, and I'm just going to choose extend, trim, and add point to pattern outline on the drop-down menu. And then I'm going to do the same for line DE, which is kind of extending here beyond the sleeve. So extend, trim, and add point to pattern outline. So there we go. This is just an extra line here now because I extended DE across all the way on one side. So I can go ahead and delete those extra lines if they are in the way. All right, now we want to duplicate this sleeve so that we have the other side. So we're going to go to the transform pattern tool, or the A hotkey. Go ahead and click and drag to box select both of those sleeve patterns, and then use Control or Command D to duplicate, and then put it over here on the other side of the bodice to help keep track of the left and right sleeves. So that is now the avatar's left sleeve, and this is the avatar's right sleeve. So it's backwards for us on the screen. Now this is going to get even more confusing because we actually want to grab the undersleeve from this side and bring it over and stack it on top of the oversleeve from this side. So just go ahead and move that the undersleeve over, put the new undersleeve right here, and line up that point 1 with that point 2 again, which means all of these points should be lined up. And the reason why we're doing that is because we need the curve direction to be the same, or actually opposite, on these two pieces. So in the next step, we're going to go to the Edit Pattern tool, or the Z hotkey, and we're going to box select all of these points. So you'll notice in the 3D window, if you've done this correctly, this sleeve on the right side of the avatar's body should be selected, and then the undersleeve on the left side of the avatar's body should be selected. Go ahead and then with those selected, click and drag that selection towards this side of the window. You do want to hold shift to make sure that it follows a path on the same axis, but go ahead then, once you've moved it over a little bit, right click, and then type in distance moved 2 inches, and then go ahead and click OK. Now we want to check in the 3D window that that curve was put in the right direction. So I just simulated, and it looks like it is, because this is the direction an arm curves. So if you got that the first try, good job. If not, then just go back and make sure that your left and your rights of your patterns are stacked correctly. Okay, now we can go to the transform point/segment tool, which is here in the 2D toolbar. If you click and hold on edit pattern, you can find transform point/segment right beneath it. Go ahead and select that tool. And now we're going to do the same thing again, where we box select all of these points down here. So that's points F, M, 1, 2, L, and G. And we're going to grab this little rotatey button. If we hover over this little antenna at the top, you'll see that it gives us the option to rotate. Once you see that icon appear, you click and hold and begin dragging your mouse to start a rotation. And we want to go ahead and make this a nice hemline here, so maybe around this direction, but you can go ahead also and right click and type in an exact degree, and I on mine put 26 degrees, and that seems to look nice. So go ahead and click OK. All right, so we have a curved sleeve here. Unfortunately, her arms are not curved. I will be making a curved arm version in a later tutorial for you to put in so that that curve looks nice. But we can go ahead and smooth out these curves by going to the Edit Pattern tool, or the Z hotkey, and then select points E, D, K, and J. So that's all of these points here. If they're hard to select, it's because this internal line is in the way. You can deactivate that line by going up here in the 2D display options, lock all internal lines. And then you can just click and drag all of those points at once, right click them and choose convert to curve point. And that will go ahead and put a nice curve in that sleeve. We'll do some truing in a later tutorial to make sure that everything is good to go here, and we'll have time to make some edits later. But for now, you can choose to simulate just to check your work, and we can go ahead and rearrange our patterns so that they make sense again. So put that undersleeve with that oversleeve and like that as well. And go ahead now, and we are done working on the bodice for the time being. So with the select move tool or the Q hotkey, you can do Control Command A to select all of your patterns. Right click the selection, choose deactivate pattern and sewing, and then use Shift Q on the keyboard to hide the bodice, and we are ready to move on to the next part in the tutorial. I will see you there.